Okay, everybody, welcome to the live stream, and I have to admit right off the top, I'm a bit nervous because the last time I did this, the last time I tried this, I desperately failed. It was bad. I did a whole 84-minute stream. My very first look at the Howard Terminal EIR, and I did the entire broadcast with one button turned off. That button right there, yeah, you heard the music go away? When I hit that button, it turns everything off. I had it off for the entire broadcast. I didn't check the live comments. I had no clue that nobody was hearing anything I was saying. All right, this music is starting to get a little bit too intense. We'll take care of that. And I'll say thank you for tuning in, because what I'm intending to do here and now is actually go through the EIR all over again. I do have a better grasp on it. It's 3,500 pages. Have I read the whole thing? Absolutely not. It has only come out, 36 hours ago? So I have a little bit of a better grasp on it. I have some sections that I definitely want to revisit and share, but my goal here is to not tell you, oh, I've read the whole thing. Here are the most important parts. Here are the best parts. What I'm going to try and do is help those of you who have not even touched this document better understand it, take a little bit of a deeper dive into the sections, the layout, the format. Again, this video is mostly for those who have yet to even see what the EIR is all about. Let me just get shuffled and reset here for a second. Let me also make sure that the live stream is actually working this time. Like I said, there are some nerves behind this because of what happened last time. I greatly apologize for that. Broadcaster's worst nightmare, that you were by yourself, you did it live, and nobody actually could even hear a darn thing you said. All right, so let me get my little presentation set up. It's ready to go, and so am I. We're going to take a look at the Howard Terminal Ballpark EIR. Now, I will do this in slide format for the beginning portion of this, but what you also need to kind of understand is actually, let me bring it up here so you can kind of see what this document looks like. It's all digital. This is kind of the landing page on the City of Oakland's website. And then you get into the documents here. Chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4, introduction, project information, all the people who commented in terms of individuals, corporations, groups, as well as local and regional government agencies. And then Chapter 4 is the consolidated responses. That means out of all the individual comments, these are the ones that were most common, that they're saying, all right, we got a lot of questions and comments on this, so we're going to respond to this wholesale in one place. So consolidated responses are right there, and then you get all the individual responses to comments in public agencies, comments of public organizations, comments to individuals, responses to public hearing comments. And then there are a bunch of different appendixes here at the end, and this one, SLR, this one is all on sea level rise, for example. I dove into this one a little bit last night, and it is fascinating. Let's see if I can center that up a little bit. There's actually information here, and we talk about Oakland City datums of the water level right now, how much it's expected to rise in the next 5 years, 10 years, 50 years. It even gets to the year 2100 here, what they're expecting. And I'm not going to go over all this right now. That's not what this is all about, but this is just to show you the level of detail which is taken here. Also, I'm going to get to a point here where the A's look like they did a presentation at one point, kind of an elevation view of how they would do this. They would actually take the project site. Basically, one way to do this, to take all of the ground of Howard Terminal here, that's in from the natural shoreline and the man-made shoreline, and to bring everything up 10 feet to protect this site from sea level rise. Now, that's not new. We've kind of known about that. It's been discussed previously. But again, there's a whole appendix on that. There's a different appendix here on cultural resources supporting information. It kind of gives some of the history of architecture of some of the buildings nearby and on site. buildings that you may want to renovate, some that you can't touch for historic reasons, like this power plant right here, which we'll talk about, the Pier power plant, a couple of the ships that are docked there. I think it talks about the cranes. I mean, for example, did you even know the names of these cranes? The X415 and the 416, or that they are Panamax cranes and what that means. I just realized as of last night, where is it here, that these cranes, the two big ones that you see in all the renderings that would be visible from the ballpark, they're the same age as me. They were installed in 1981. Let me see if I can just find it here. There it is, yeah. Cranes 415 and 416 were installed in 1981 as part of the development of the present-day Howard Terminal. So there you go. Gives you an idea of all the different sections here. So what I'm going to do is on my little PowerPoint, I'm going to kind of go through the biggest things I found from chapters 1 to, and I guess that's it, 1 and 2. I'm going to let you just see chapter 3 here off the document, and then chapter 4. That's probably where I'm going to stop this video. It took me 84 minutes to get through this last time, and I've already wasted 6 of your minutes kind of warming up this live stream to get it going. Okay, so without further delay, let me get my presentation back up here, and we can get rolling with that. Okay. The ballpark and the environmental impact report, and we kind of begin with this whole introduction, intended use of the final EIR. So what are they going to do with this? The City of Oakland, as lead agency, will make the decision whether to certify the final EIR in accordance with Section 15090 of the state CEQA guidelines. Before the city may approve the proposed project, it must independently review and consider the information contained in this final EIR, certifying it that it adequately discloses the environmental effects of the project, that the final EIR has been completed in conformance with CEQA, and that the decision-making body of the lead agency independently reviewed and considered the information contained in the final EIR. Certification of the final EIR, this document, right, would indicate the city's determination that the final EIR adequately evaluated the environmental impacts that could be associated with the Oakland Waterfront Ballpark project, district project sometimes. And by the way, that's kind of the formal name they use here, the Oakland Waterfront Ballpark District Project. I like to call it Howard Terminal. That's a little more easy for a broadcaster, but there you go. If certified, the final EIR would be used by the city to inform its decisions to modify, approve, or deny approval of the proposed project based on the analysis in the document and in accordance with the findings required by CEQA guidelines. Where is it here? The city would then use this final EIR. Whoa. Nope, not ready for that. Hang on a second. Then use this final EIR as the primary environmental document to evaluate all subsequent planning and permitting actions associated with the project, including the adoption of mitigation monitoring and reporting program, general plan amendments, rezoning. So basically, this is a master document of here's what we're going to do and here's where we're going next in everything. The Port of Oakland and other responsible agencies would use the certified EIR to support their decisions via CEQA guideline section 15096. Okay, and that's pretty obvious, right? But it spells out the bigger picture of this is published, it now needs to be approved. Once it's approved, it's kind of like a guidebook and a rule book of what is bound to happen next. Let's talk about Assembly Bill 734, which is mentioned here. As described in Chapter 1 of the draft EIR, the project sponsor, the A's, applied for certification by the governor pursuant to California AB Assembly Bill 734, which was enacted in 2018. I remember that night, actually, because I happened to see Dave Cavill a little bit later on. He and the A's were pumped. This was a big deal back then. I'll show you what AB 734 says in just a second, but let me try and explain it first. EIRs come out, and then lawsuits happen. And sometimes those lawsuits can drag out 2 to 3 years and basically filibuster a project. It can stop a project from moving forward because of all the legal red tape. AB 734 has some give and take, but one of the good parts for the A's in this project is that no lawsuits can go on past 270 days to stall or delay this project. So let me actually go to AB 734 here. This bill would establish specified procedures for the administrative and judicial review of the environmental review and approvals granted for the Oakland Sports and Mixed-Use Project as defined, located in the city of Oakland, that is certified by the governor as meeting certain requirements. Because a public agency would be required to comply with those new procedures, this bill would impose a state-mandated local program. Here's the important part. The bill would apply certain rules of court-establishing procedures requiring actions or proceedings seeking judicial review pursuant to CEQA or the granting of the project approvals, including any appeals therefrom. That's a weird word. Therefrom? I don't use that word. Therefrom. Any appeals therefrom to be resolved to the extent feasible within 270 days of the filing of the certified record of proceedings with the court to an action or proceeding seeking judicial review of the lead agency's action related to the Oakland Sports and Mixed-Use Project under CEQA. So basically what they're saying is there might be some wiggle room there, but to be resolved to the extent feasible within 270 days. This bill would make legislative findings and declarations as to the necessity of a special statute for the Oakland Sports and Mixed-Use Project. The California Constitution requires the state to reimburse local agencies and school districts for certain costs mandated by the state. I think that's probably all we need to say about that one. Essentially, all of that being said, what's happening here is that the process is protected, right? It's going to have its own issues, and there are inevitable things. There are other hurdles to jump here for this project. But a main one, and how things usually get slowed down, is this way. And because of AB 734 from 2018, this is 3.5 years old now. This has kind of been not lying in the weeds, but it hasn't been on the forefront for everybody. Now you're seeing how important that groundwork is that's already been laid. All right, let's move on here. 1.4, so I think it's Chapter 1, Section 4, new information in the final EIR. This talks about if things change, right? Now that the EIR has come out, and you understand, right? Times change, projects change, ideas change, budgets change, costs change, the environment changes. But if significant new information is added to an EIR after a notice of public review of the draft EIR document has been given, in this case February 26th of 21, but before final certification of the EIR, the lead agency must issue a new notice and recirculate the draft EIR for further comment and consultation. State CEQA guidelines section specifies the following. Significant new information requiring recirculation includes, for example, a disclosure showing that a new significant environmental impact would result from the project or a new mitigation measure proposed to be implemented. Let me stop right there. Mitigation measure. That's essentially a remedy to the project. Mitigation are things that need to be done to fix a problem or make this project be up to standards that it needs to be. Disclosure showing that, too, a substantial increase in the severity of an environmental impact would result unless mitigation measures are adopted. Or 3, disclosure showing that a feasible project alternative or mitigation measure considerably different from others previously analyzed would clearly lessen the significant environmental impacts of the project. Or number 4, that the draft EIR was so fundamentally and basically inadequate and conclusive in nature, I don't know, that meaningful public review and comment were precluded. So basically, if there are major changes, we need to readdress things kind of from scratch a little bit. I think I'm interpreting this correctly. Again, this is part of the problem. Sports broadcaster, hey, college educated, 40 years old. I've been around a while, been through some important documents of my own in life, but these things take a while to really digest, understand. I hope that's what I'm reading is correct. And that's what I think all of this is a project for us. How many EIRs have you ever dug into? This is probably my first. I mean, I've maybe looked at a couple others, but not at this level of detail. All right, now we're in Chapter 2, updates related to the project. One here is on affordable housing. This kind of paints the picture that in broad terms, everything is squared away, but that there are some details still to finalize. The draft EIR analyzes a project in which 3,000 dwelling units would be constructed on the project site, and this has not changed. However, when the draft EIR was prepared, It was not known how the project sponsor, the A's, would address requirements for affordable housing, and the project description indicated a variety of options. So, I mean, just which one are we going to do? That's fine. Those options are listed out. They'll take care of it. As discussed in more detail in Consolidated Response 4.12, Affordable Housing, Chapter 4 of this document, and in accordance with the development agreement term sheet that the City Council adopted in July 2021, that was July 20th, the project would be required to include affordable housing program that would make 450 of the on-site dwelling units affordable units and would also provide a financial commitment of $50 million to support a combination of new off-site units, preservation and or renovation of existing units, and or down payment assistance. The project would also provide anti-displacement tenant services. So, leaves some wiggle room as to how exactly this is going to take place, but I think what you read there, it says, and the project description indicated a variety of options. Sounds like they don't want to get too specific, but they have it taken care of. All right. Fishing pier request. Now, this one is new to me. A fishing pier was not on my radar, but let me just stop right here. This is the level of detail of this EIR. And for those out there who say, well, you know, what progress is being made in Oakland? How far are the A's in Oakland and the city and the county? How far? What's happening? When are the shovels going to go in the ground? Number one, wait till you see all the different agencies, the local government agencies that have a hand in their say, their requirements, their rules. That's part of it. But another part is like, look how much work has gone into this. I was part of listening to a meeting back in September, the Design Review Board meeting for Oakland. They spent a good 20 minutes talking about how rainwater would be dispersed from Howard Terminal, how they would get the drainage correct. If we're at that level of detail right now on this project, and I know Las Vegas is being pursued, and I know Oakland has taken a long time to get to this point, and it's been a couple decades for the A's in their ballpark search. We are at levels that have never even been fathomed before in terms of a new ballpark in Oakland. So take all this into perspective that we're literally here talking about a fishing pier for Howard Terminal or the waterfront ballpark district. Anyway, in response to a collective request that a fishing pier be incorporated into the project's design to be consistent with the Bay Plan, and I'm just going to kind of skip through this. This is a lot of text on your screen. It basically says that they want to put a fishing pier somewhere, but I think it says here that it's not exactly, it doesn't exactly fit because of the inner harbor turning basin and also the width of the estuary and waterway as is. In fact, it says, as currently designed, the proposed project would not physically prohibit recreational fishing activities from waterfront park along the wharf. However, to summarize response to comment in Chapter 5 of this document and the city's initial consultation with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, U.S. Coast Guard, Port of Oakland, and Inner Harbor, it says, regarding activity in the Federal Navigation Channel, the estuary, and the Inner Harbor turning basin, it was determined that no separate fishing pier structures could be developed. Fishing activity would be limited to approximately 128 feet out from the face of the wharf, which is the existing edge of the federal navigable waterway and a distance subject to change. I think what they're saying is that they will allow fishing from the shore, from the edge of land to the water, but they're not going to build a fishing pier. And that, to me, I mean, I could have told you that if you would have, after walking the site like I did in 2019, I could have told you right on the spot, yeah, I don't think a fishing pier is going to work here. But this document covers that request. All right, at-grade railroad safety improvements. This is a relatively big one, a costly one, an important one. There's a level of conversation about trains in the area, noise, pedestrians, cars, bikes, and train tracks, and moving trains. So, 2.1.3. As described in detail in the Consolidated Response, Chapter 4 of this document, many commenters on the draft EIR raised concern that the at-grade rail safety requirements, at grade, right, we're talking about where train tracks, humans, bikes, and cars are all at the same level. Not an overpass, not an underpass, not a buried train track that goes as a tunnel. We're talking about everything, on the same ground. At-grade rail safety requirements and mitigation measure, Transportation 3A, Only extended from the project's site frontage, starting at the Schnitzer Steel boundary and along Embarcadero to include crossings at Market, Martin Luther King, Clay, Washington, and Broadway. What they're saying there is that a lot of commenters said, hey, you want to take care of the train and car intersections only in front of Howard Terminal, but realistically, it's got to be done on a wider scope because people will be using those streets to walk, to bike, or for cars. Commenters requested that the at-grade rail safety requirements should extend further through the Jack London district, right? Probably south, closer to Jack London Square. With this final EIR, mitigation measure Transportation 3A, is expanded such that the proposed project would install at-grade railroad crossing improvements along Embarcadero beyond Broadway to include Franklin Street, Webster Street, and Oak Street. See the proposed text edits, what it says, I think it says here, as explained in the draft EIR, implementation of this mitigation measure is within the jurisdiction of another agency. But I think what this is clearly spelling out here is that there are bigger areas that need to be addressed than just right in front of the ballpark. 2.1.4, status of draft remedial action program. RAP. Why didn't they put DRAP? DRAP. The draft EIR described that the proposed project would prepare a removal action work plan, RAW, here we go with the acronyms, as the remediation plan. As discussed in the consolidated response, subsequent to the publication of the draft EIR, the project sponsor, the A's, conservatively elected to prepare a remedial action plan, or RAP, for the entire project site. The draft RAP is anticipated to be submitted to the Department of Toxic Substances Control in early 2022. So we don't have this yet. See Consolidated Response 416, which discusses more information about the nature of the RAWs versus RAPs, text modifications, and the DTSC review process that will ensure the remedial action be protective of construction workers, the public, and the environment. So this one is when everybody talks about toxins, the land, the cleanliness of the area. This goes to show that the A's are already on it. They're submitting this RAP, this remedial action program, to the DTSC in early 2022. And then it says there the review process, right? They'll go over it. But that makes me think that the A's already have hopefully some indications. They've got all the thumbs up they need to move forward on this, knowing that if there are things that need to be remedied, right? It's a draft remedial action program in terms of toxins or the land, that they'll be able to take care of it. That there may be some things, I don't know, I guess we'll find out in early 2022, but that everything is manageable. So that's that. And, you know, I'm finding what I'm doing here is going a little bit too into detail on a lot of this stuff. But I also want to make it clear, like, this is what the document says, and this is kind of the scope of it. Okay. Project applications and proposed design guidelines. Now, there is a highlighted section here, which we will go over and then we'll revisit it. Since publication of the draft EIR, the project sponsor submitted revisions to the city on July 19th, 2021 and October 8th, 2021, with a forthcoming revision anticipated in December 2021 to complete the project applications and supporting materials for the planned unit development, the PUD, to establish a comprehensive plan for the entire site. Pursuant to PUD procedures, the application revision specifically included the required preliminary development plan, PDP, love our acronyms, and tentative tract map, TTM, components of the PUD. The project sponsor submitted the Oakland Athletics Howard Terminal Ballpark District Master Plan Preliminary Development Plan Submittal, wow, which includes the site layout, including public streets, development sites, publicly accessible open spaces, as well as the proposed density and commercial floor areas, allowances within the development, the general parameters of the future building envelopes. I apologize that I read all that so fast. What I think is important there is that you saw July 19th, 2021, there was a plan. Then October 8th, it was revised. And maybe with whatever comes out here in December 2021, which, by the way, are we talking about 12, 13 days left as I do this video? I don't know, and we're going to see that. And I don't know if it's going to be much different. I don't even know if it's going to be that public. But it just goes to show you that design changes, modifications, improvements are constantly happening. And we've had them since July, October, and now December. And these are the latest renderings, right? These are some of the ones that you've seen. But there have been, I think, 2 prior versions before this one. So how things look and how things get built out, it's not going to be the initial vision, I think, that people saw. This is constantly getting modified, constantly getting improved on. And eventually they have to settle on something that's agreeable so that it doesn't change. And I think that's what this is talking about here, is that they can get a design plan, streets, buildings, building heights. I know listening to the Design Review Council meeting back in September, that was part of a big conversation they had, is how tall do you want buildings around this ballpark to be? How big do you want these structures to be in comparison to downtown Oakland? They're on the estuary. How does this all fit into kind of the master plan? So, and there it is. The city held a special public meeting of the DRC, Design Review Committee, on September 8th. That's the one I listened to, which provided comment and direction to the project sponsor and city planning staff regarding aspects of the proposed project's preliminary design. So, we're expecting that there will be a revision of that here in December 2021. While the PUD application may include more specificity or refinements to these design characteristics of the project than was available to describe in the draft EIR, the information is consistent with all aspects of the proposed project described and analyzed in the draft EIR. No new information presented in the PUD would change any of the environmental analysis or findings in the draft EIR. So let's just go revisit that. It sounds to me like they've said, you've got it close enough. Nothing you do here is going to dramatically affect what we found in the EIR. That's a positive. All right, let's move on here. Peaker Power Plant variant. Now, we're going to talk about the Peaker Power Plant in a second. In the supporting materials for the PUD application for the proposed project, the project sponsor disclosed changes to the Peaker Power Plant variant, specifically changes to the exterior modifications of the proposed U-shaped building at 601 Embarcadero West, as described and analyzed in Chapter 5. Under the Peaker plant variant, the majority of the building would remain intact and would be rehabilitated according to the Secretary of the Interior standards if the variant is implemented. By the way, the word variant here in 2021 into 22, it just strikes a wrong chord with me. And I know the word variant has been around for a long time. They use it in aviation a lot. 737-800, 737-900. Those are different variants. But yeah, right now, variants, bad taste in my mouth. What are we talking about here? First off, let me load this up here on the computer for you so you can take a look at this this region and what's being discussed and where this building is. Okay. So we are looking at Howard Terminal here on Google Maps. This is the site, right? Ballpark, right about here. Some buildings here, parking lots here, streets extending. Here, if this helps, you kind of see, Port of Oakland over here, Schnitzer Steel right there, downtown, Lake Merritt. Okay. So the Peaker Power Plant is right here. And to show you what it looks like, I actually did this live on my first video, which was, yes, on mute. Here it is. Here's the Peaker Power Plant building. It's beautiful. I did a little research, and I think they said it was from the early 1900s. Maybe some of the building was even constructed before that. Obviously, it's had better days. Graffiti all over it. And just look at take a quick glance here at the neighborhood we're talking about. Fitting that there's a container truck blocking my current view. If we can go down the street here a little bit. But yeah, train tracks. What is this thing parked? They're lined up. There they are. And who knows when this, photo was taken. Oh, there it is. Image captured December 2020 right there. But it just goes to show you, this is like the at-grade, this is where, you got to figure out how to get a lot of cars in and out of here at the same time as trains and pedestrians safely. There's a whole chapter about fences and things that would, protect everybody all at once. We'll get into that later. But this is the Peaker Power Plant right here. And what the A's want to do as part of this ballpark, I think there is an idea that they could potentially shorten this building a little bit. I think we'll get into that text in just a second. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, but I just wanted to show you what the building was, where it was, before we discuss it even further here. Specifically, as described in detail of the draft EIR Section 512, the peaker power plant variant would remove the southern portion of the west wing. So that's the exact part I just showed you there. As well as the southern portion of the east wing at 51 Jefferson Street. The variant is modified such that no portion of the east wing would be removed. The east wing would instead be retained, and the south portion of the west wing would continue to be removed as originally proposed. These wing alterations are consistent with the peaker plant variations shown in the figures. The modified peaker power plant building would retain its U shape and central courtyard. It would continue to face and accommodate Athletics Way, one of the major pedestrian gateways into the new ballpark and the adjoining development. So, looking at that structure as you saw it there and how it integrates into a ballpark, people going in and out, the A's want to keep that building. I think that's awesome, first off. I mean, I don't know historically, even if you wanted to get rid of it, if you could, or if that made sense, but, think about what historic buildings have meant to very cool ballparks, like the Warehouse at Camden Yards, or the... What's the building at Petco down the left field line? Oh, I'm drawing a blank on it, but you know what I'm talking about. Same idea. It's an old facade. It's an old building that they just basically reinforced and rehabilitated and then built right around it. So you get something that's truly old, improved, redone, and built with all your new, and it gets to live another, 250 years of its life in good fashion. So that's a little bit about the peaker power plant. And that's actually all I have for those couple sections here. Those are the first two sections which I talked about were kind of the setup and the big picture, big ticket items. And that actually brings us to, and it's funny, I just took a peek at the comments there real quick just to make sure that I was live streaming and you could hear me. Can you tell I'm a little bit burned by that still, that I did this video already? Anyway, so that's chapter 1 and chapter 2. So now chapter 3 is relatively simple. It's quick, but it's also important. This is the roster of commenters. Now, these are the people who provided input. And when I say people, there's 3 different sections to look at here. There are the state, regional, and local agencies commenting on the draft EIR, right? Then, and we'll go into this in detail. I'm going to skip by it for a second. Then there are the organizations, right? And you have, 18 government agencies. We're going to end up here with 67 different organizations, and then we're going to get into the individuals. You ready for this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100, 100, 341, right? Is it 341? Let me guess. 343. Oh, 341. There it is. Thank you, Alan Warren. Or is it Elaine? Elaine Warren. Allene. It's a cool name. I just hope I'm saying it right. Elaine Warren. Anyway, and then there are other people here who had input into different meetings during the process, during the Landmarks Preservation Advisory Board public hearing, the Planning Commission public hearing. These are all the speakers. Comments received after the closed period, and that's the end. So this is only 16 pages, but it's important because this goes to show you how many different local and regional government agencies and state agencies have and had their say in this project and still are important to making this project happen. California Highway Patrol, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, AC Transit, the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority. That one's, I'm still trying to figure that one out, how they're exactly involved. East Bay MUD, California Public Utilities Commission, California State Lands Commission. Capital Corridor, makes a lot of sense. San Francisco Bay Area Water Emergency Transportation Authority, City of Alameda, right? They're a neighbor right across the estuary. Bay Area Air Quality Management District, Bay Conservation and Development Commission, California Department of Transportation, Caltrans, BART, the Bay Region Harbor Safety Committee, the Alameda County Transportation Commission, California Air Resources Board, and the State Clearinghouse. That's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. You know what I'm saying here? And I go back to the level of detail of what's in the EIR, shows you how hard people have been working, but also to appease all of these different agencies, and they're important. And you'd like to hope and think that they have the expertise necessary to make this project a hit across traffic and fish and wildlife and water issues and environmental issues and vessel traffic issues like the Harbor Safety Committee, all this stuff. It's important, but you just see how much potential red tape there is along the way. And so I think, getting through this, like this is part of it. This is this whole chapter right here. I don't want to say it's what the ballpark is up against, but it's what the ballpark is working through to become a reality. All right. So those are all of the agencies. Here are the organizations, and I'm not going to mention them all by name here, but some of them have a vested interest in making this project happen. Like you would think Bike East Bay, they just want to make sure that there's bike trails and bike lanes and that they're properly executed and that there's bike access. I mean, the A's have talked about what a big deal that is as part of this project. So I don't know what their comment is, haven't got that far, but there are some that you would understand want their say because they just want to make sure things are right. There are others in here who greatly oppose the project. And, you talk about those lawsuits earlier on, the 270 days they have to resolve those lawsuits to a reasonable extent. Here's the list of names of likely where those lawsuits will be coming from. And I don't think that's being controversial. I think that's pretty accurate. That's pretty realistic here. There are a couple names mentioned multiple times, and some are then represented by their lawyers, it appears. But again, this is a list of organizations who wanted their say in the process. And then you get to the individuals. And I do see a couple people here multiple times, like Charlie Bolton, Charlie Bolton, Charlie Bolton, Charlie Bolton, Charlie Bolton. I bet you I could find him again a couple more times. There he is, Charlie Bolton, Charlie Bolton. But these are people who I guess either wrote in, via email or whatever, and those comments are documented. I mean, you could click on and see exactly what they said here, and then the responses later. But all these happened in April of 2021. You can see this is all organized by date received. Look at Charlie Bolton. There he is again. So when I said 341 individuals, come on, let me see Charlie Bolton one more time. Maybe it's actually, I thought I saw it. Maybe it's actually 341 comments. So, dang it, I wanted one more Charlie Bolton. So that kind of gives you an idea of what Chapter 3 is. It's all about the roster of commenters. And that brings us to Chapter 4, the consolidated responses. To summarize this again, these are the most common questions and topics that were brought up as part of the process. And instead of responding to every one of them and often being repetitive, they said, all right, we're going to take the most. I'll just read it here. Because several of the comment letters raised similar issues on the draft EIR, a set of consolidated responses were developed to address common topics in a comprehensive manner. That said it better than I could have. That's why I read it. Although not required by CEQA, the consolidated responses presented in this chapter are intended to improve the readability of the document by reducing repetition and numerous cross-references throughout the individual responses presented. Okay. And I find this chapter and these sections to be among the most fascinating. And I don't even have time to get into all of this. It's deep, it's heavy, but let me just show you, again, the level of detail here. Bird impacts from fireworks displays, right? So we're talking about this fine of a detail but it's important. It's got to be sorted out now rather than later. But it says here, several comments address the issue of operational noise and light disturbance to nesting birds from fireworks displays, suggesting that the analysis is inadequate and should be expanded to consider other nesting or foraging birds that might be adversely affected by the fireworks displays, in addition to the peregrine falcon. Oh, I should probably know that. Peregrine falcon. And that the mitigation measure BIO1C is insufficient in reducing the potential impact from firework displays on the Falcon to a less than significant level. So people are concerned about that. Rightfully so. I get it. They want to know how to resolve this. I don't know. Let me just say, you stay at the Coliseum. Aren't you still having to figure this out all over again if you were to rebuild at the Coliseum? Or I don't even know if was there an EIR for the Coliseum for fireworks done back in the mid-'60s? Does that document even exist? We're getting better as a society, and the A's are complying with so many more things because of the new ballpark. There are new sets of rules. This is one of them. And I think what this ultimately says here is that they'll work it out and they're not going to prohibit fireworks. But let's read. Potential impacts referred to by the commenters include a concern for other nesting and foraging bird species within the project site or vicinity, including the least tern colony on Alameda Island, adequacy of a 500-foot spatial buffer specified in the mitigation measure between fireworks detonation site and the falcon nest to mitigate adverse effects and avoid take of the nest eggs or the young, and pre-event nesting survey timing, frequency, and scope ahead of fireworks displays. Let me just go over that one more time. So basically what it says here, that they would have to do the research to figure out where they could do fireworks, but nesting survey timing, frequency, and scope ahead of fireworks displays, and whether ending such pre-event surveys after 3 consecutive seasons of negative survey results for falcons on the container cranes of the project site is appropriate. So again, it doesn't sound like we have a finite answer of what is going to be the long term, but these are the things being brought up, being discussed. This is the level of detail of this document. Let me go back here for 1 second. And I wish it would center out just a little bit better here. I apologize that it doesn't. But here are more consolidated responses. I mean, here's one on a quiet zone. Several comments voice support for updated railway safety at intersections, requesting additional intersections to be included, and for the Jack London neighborhood to be eligible to be a train quiet zone to alleviate existing noise from train horns in the area. Again, this is pretty detailed, but it's important, right? If they're going to build 3,000 housing units in the vicinity, and they're going to, a baseball stadium is not impacted by a train whistle going off every once in a while or a couple times a night. But when people live in this neighborhood, you want it to be livable. And I get it. To the extent that these comments address existing conditions such as train noise in the vicinity of existing residents and safety concerns at intersections that would experience little or no increased pedestrian, bicycle, or automobile traffic as a result of the project, they do not concern impacts of the proposed project or adequacy of the draft EIR. Let me just again scan all of this to see the important parts here. As described in the draft EIR, there are significant noise impacts under existing conditions in the areas surrounding the proposed project and the project site itself. The existing rail crossing are unprotected and present safety issues, and there's whole chapters on that. About what people think they should do, options they have. Appropriately, the draft EIR's impact analysis focuses on whether the proposed project itself would result in new and significant noise impacts or whether it would exacerbate existing safety concerns. The focus of the mitigation measures included in the draft EIR is similar. They are intended to address new and significant impacts and not to remedy existing problems except to the extent that the proposed project would somehow exacerbate those problems. As shown, rail noise is part of the existing environment in the vicinity of Howard Terminal and throughout the surrounding area. Nonetheless, the draft EIR provides an analysis of existing noise effects on the project for informational purposes and to inform the analysis of project noise impacts and their potential. As a result, mitigation measure NOI-3 is proposed for adoption to ensure that new buildings on the project site contain noise reduction measures such as sound-rated windows, wall, and door assemblies. So there you go. And there is a lot more to this, but a train quiet zone. It sounds interesting. Let me see here. The recommendations of the 2011 train quiet zone study. Look, and I think it says here, a railroad quiet zone is an area where locomotive engineers are not required to sound train warning horns as they approach an at-grade crossing. The purpose of the Oakland Railroad Quiet Zone study is to explore the potential for implementation of a quiet zone on the UPRR corridor through the Jack London Square area of the city of Oakland. I think it still says in here, for example, a train operator will blow the train's horns to warn pedestrians for whatever reason. For example, a train operator will blow the train's horns to warn if pedestrians, for whatever reason, cross tracks in front of the train as it approaches them. So I think what it's saying is that it's like, I'm not going to use the horn of my car unless I really need to. Like, try to drive quietly at night. Anyway, I digress on that. But that is something that's part of this document. Again, that's the level of depth of where we are in this project right now. Let me go into some other ones here. Parking, for example. Several comments were made regarding parking, asserting that let me just check that there. Sorry. That the project may exacerbate parking demand in surrounding areas. A comment here states that a stadium with only 2,000 parking spaces for attendees will not be sufficient to mitigate parking if a ballpark is developed. Project parking characteristics. 2,000, it says here, 3,500 spaces at opening day for the ballpark compared to 9,100 parking spaces at the Coliseum. Now, I believe the project would provide 2,000 space or 3,500 spaces. But that's not including the surrounding area. And also 9,100 spaces for the Coliseum. That's a stadium that, can have upwards of 60,000. This is a stadium that's only going to seat 35,000. So there is that proportion difference, which is important here. With substantially less parking for the project's ballpark, attendees would be more likely to use other transportation modes than vehicles to access the site, including one of the 3 BART stations, which we'll dive into in just a second, each located within about 1 mile of the project site, as well as AC Transit, ferry, Amtrak, walking, and biking. Parking management. Again, the purpose of me in this video is not to read paragraph after paragraph and put you to sleep, but it's to show you where to find these things in here. This is the response to parking, off-street parking availability. Let me see the other sections in here. Off-street parking characteristics within 1 mile of the parking site. So how about this? Here's total available off-street parking. So we talked about 9,100 spaces at the Coliseum for a huge venue. And actually, how about this? Sometimes a baseball game and there used to be a basketball game going on at the very same time. Dual events. So now let's take a stadium of 50-something thousand plus an arena of, was it 16, 17,000? Like now you're talking 70,000 potential people if they were maxed out. They rarely ever were, but you catch my drift here. So 9,100 at the Coliseum, here's 9,700. I also understand that within 1 mile of the project site, a ton of people live and work, and I totally get that. But it just goes to show you here. And this is for different events, weekday evening game, weekday day game. Here's 13,138 off-street parking supply. Off-street parking demand, off-street parking available. Here's another one. Ballpark attendees who drive. Parking distribution. The project site, weekday ballpark event, 14 events per year. Weekday day. So like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Weekday evening, up to 50 events per year. Is that about right? Would there be only 50 weekday evening? I guess you play a lot of weekend games, right? So it goes to show you the breakdown of the project site, like West Oakland overflow BART parking lots, downtown Chinatown, Jack London district, west and east of Broadway. Interesting. So you can kind of see all the stats there on the screen. And then there's measures to reduce automobile trips. They're trying to get, I think, an idea of like 20% less auto traffic driving to the ballpark. So they're going to try to accommodate as much as possible, but their whole theme is to make it appealing to get to the ballpark in other ways so that you're not even wanting to park your car. Let me go to BART. Was BART one of the... There it is. BART station capacity. 420, by the way. The BART comment letter, A14, so this was BART's input in the project. Another commenter expressed concerns about the capacity of the 3 BART stations, 12th Street and Broadway, Lake Merritt and West Oakland, that would serve the project. And again, I've got a whole video on this elsewhere on my channel. We're talking about 3 BART stations versus 1 at the Coliseum. 1 Coliseum platform that's not the biggest, it's not as big as others. It has a 15-foot wide overpass, the pedestrian walkway, the pedestrian bridge to BART, the biggest bottleneck in the history of bottlenecks. Like, we've all seen that thing crowded to the gills. That 1 station, I realize it is technically on site at the Coliseum. It's not. It's across the street. It's accessible, but it's not like really on site. It's not built into the Coliseum. That 1 station versus these 3. Anyway, potential impacts referred to by the commenters include vertical circulation and queuing issues, unsafe conditions for commuters and attendees traveling through BART stations, and overcrowding on station platforms. Comment A14.6 broadly states the DEIR contains no analysis of other capacity issues at the affected BART stations. There are limited numbers of fare gates and vertical circulation elements, stairs, elevators, and escalators. Like, we're talking about, because these are underground stations, at least Lake Merritt and 12th Street are. West Oakland is above the ground, right? Limited number of fare gates and vertical circulation elements at Lake Merritt. Oh, and West Oakland. Okay, maybe stairs up to it. I understand. The project may result in crowd control and queuing issues and overcrowding on its station's platform, hampering BART's ability to safely serve commuters and ballpark attendees. So anybody can raise that concern. It says here, another concern regarding BART capacity is passenger train load capacity considering the new ballpark riders. Comment A14.9 states, the DEIR contains no analysis of BART's passenger train load capacity. While BART is in the midst of purchasing new rail cars and updating its train control system to increase network capacity, there was no analysis of the project's impact on BART's train load capacity with or without these capacity enhancements. So I guess what they're saying is you're judging it on old trains and new trains are less efficient? You would think that they wouldn't be. Of concern in the comments is the potential capacity issues during the peak commuting hour. 2 scenarios are most relevant for these concerns. Weekday afternoon, post-event ballpark travelers entering the BART system between 4 and 5 p.m. and evening weekday pre-event travelers between 5:30 and 6:30, both coinciding with BART's evening commute peak hours of 4 to 7 p.m. When life is normal, remember that? BART is busy, between 4 and 7 p.m. And they're saying that, you're pushing more people through the system to get to baseball games. And that's understandable, but are you pushing so many that the system can't handle it? That's the different question here. The city is fully cognizant of conditions and concerns related to BART station and line capacity and passenger safety. As discussed in the Consolidated Response 420, the draft EIR describes the mitigation measures to reduce the impact of additional demand generated by the project and contains an analysis of potential impacts that's consistent with CEQA requirements. Translation, we got it figured out. You don't need to worry about it. And we've got the proof in Section 421. Under state guidelines, there's no obligation to analyze transit capacity issues except to the extent that they would result in effects on safety. Okay. Commenters have expressed concern about transit capacity and about impacts that may result, but there is no substantial evidence that significant safety impacts would occur. These issues and the adequacy of the draft EIR are discussed further in the following 6 subsections. Do I have to go through 6 of these subsections? Here we go. BART capacity analysis. Each period compared existing pre-COVID-19 conditions to existing plus project. So let me also do this because this is an interesting graph right here. Weekday evening game arrivals. So we're talking about a Friday night game at Howard Terminal. The A's and you name it, Angels. check this out. I never really realized this, but the most riders, in fact, 28%, the biggest piece of the pie, is actually coming from the peninsula between Daly City and Embarcadero Station. And that's the other thing here. I think it's important to recognize here, Draft EIR, this 415-182, describes the data sources used to establish the characteristics of ballpark attendee trip generation and distribution. Where it is here. This displays the expected distribution of all game day arrivals and departures, respectively, on each BART line at the 3 BART stations. So if I'm correct, and I've rode BART enough, the Coliseum station only has trains on the Dublin-Pleasanton line, if you're going like to the East Bay, Dublin-Pleasanton line, and what used to be the Fremont line. I guess now is it the Berryessa line? I haven't been on BART lately. But now you're getting, look at the different lines that you have access to between 12th Street, Lake Merritt, and West Oakland. You have the yellow, blue, green, orange, and red lines. You have, is that all of them? I think you have access to every single BART line, depending on which station you use. Now, it's saying here overall, like this number is also important, the total ridership on a weekday evening game. 20% are going to come from Lake Merritt. Now, that's the farthest station away. It's a little bit more than a mile, like 20-something minute walk. But 12th Street is exactly a mile away and about a 20-minute walk. 48%, right down Broadway, are going to come that way. 32% of BART riders that would come on weekday evenings would come via the West Oakland station. Again, that's also about a mile and about a 20-minute walk. But here's the breakdown of what stations they would be using to come. And the heaviest ridership would actually come from the peninsula. And then you have, between Bayfair and Fruitvale, between Dublin, Pleasanton, and, hey, Castro Valley, 13%. And then between Antioch and Rockridge on that yellow line. This is from a Fare and Pier survey done in 2021. I actually have quoted some of their work from 2018 or 19, so it's great to have this updated information. Weekday day game departures. So now we're talking about, getaway day, Wednesday afternoon, Thursday afternoon game. And the ridership is not that different. What did I say here? 20, 48, 32, 20, 41, 39. Platform analysis. Okay, so we talked about, are the stations big enough? A comment here states that the project may lead to overcrowding on its platforms, hampering BART's ability to safely serve commuters and ballpark attendees, and had indicated that there may be a need to include platform screen doors at the affected stations to manage this condition, right? So you've seen that before around the world, that there are just doors on the platform that don't allow you to get to the train unless the platform doors open, so you can't fall on the tracks or it can't get too crowded. To address these concerns, platform square footages per person were calculated using the same approach by BART in similar analyses. BART does not have capacity standards. Each platform of each station was measured to determine the amount of feet per person for riders boarding and alighting trains during the 2 study periods. Alighting train. Have I ever used that word? Alighting a train? Is it getting on a train? Single platform at BART, Lake Merritt, 1 floor below the mezzanine area that serves 2 tracks. This is just, this is math here. This is just the description. That's it. 12,830 square feet at Lake Merritt. That's a big platform area. Total platform of the queuing area of 6,462 square feet at 12th Street BART, and total platform queuing area measured at 10,400 square feet at the West Oakland BART station. Man, I would love to know what the Coliseum square footage is. Now that I know, I bet you it's closer to, wait a second. I messed up here. I got the second platform has a total platform queuing area of 6,400. The first platform has a total of 11,324. So 12th Street, yeah, because of the 2 different lines. But I bet you, now that I know all this, I bet you the Coliseum one is a lot closer to 6 or 7 or 8 than it is to 10, 11, or 12. Don't quote me. I don't have the numbers here, but it's interesting to see this and now kind of put the pieces together. I'm not trying to knock the Coliseum BART station. I'm just saying that's a huge concern of people. Well, build at the Coliseum site. BART's right there. Yeah, but is BART great right there? And wouldn't 3 stations be better than just one? I know it's a 20-minute walk, but again, existing ridership distribution, different people per hour, lightings and boardings. I wish I knew what that meant. Existing plus project ridership distribution. So this is, oh, wait a second. It's got platform capacity here, but it doesn't give me the Coliseum to measure it against. Vertical circulation, how to get people up and down to the tracks. Stairway and escalator. I mean, this is an amazing amount of information here. I know. This video is not to read all of this to you and do a PowerPoint presentation, but all of this is available to you for your disposal. And it does seem like what's ultimately, broken down here is that they can take care of this. God, there was a section in here I was pretty sure that said BART should be able to handle the increased ridership and the load. And maybe I kind of read that already. Maybe that's it. There's no substantial evidence that significant safety impacts would occur. These issues and the adequacy of the draft EIR are discussed further in the following 6 subsections. So, let me see here. I thought there was something pretty definitive. Well, let's see if we can get to the end of this section and see if it gives us a bit more of a concrete answer. How do you like this? Me just scrolling through like a... Again, this is a 3,500-page document. In fact, I'm going to switch modes on my mouse here. Oh, conclusion. Thank you. 420.6. As mentioned in the draft EIR, existing coordination between the project sponsor and BART at the Coliseum... Wait a second. Scratch that. As mentioned in the draft EIR, existing coordination between the project sponsor, the A's, and BART that already occurs at the Coliseum would need to continue to help manage the additional riders with resources to guide attendees through the stations. Some of the existing management strategies that occur at the Coliseum that could apply to the 3 project stations include providing BART staff to help facilitate the increased ridership. BART provides extra trains when feasible to serve Coliseum events, and this practice may no longer be required because the project would be located within walking distance of 3 BART stations that, combined, serve every line in the BART system. That's exactly what I was saying before. So check this out. I mean, basically, there are some small things here, providing BART staff to help facilitate increased ridership, BART providing extra trains when feasible, like they already do. But it says this practice may no longer be required because the project would be located within walking distance of 3 BART stations that combined would serve every BART line in the system. BART notes in comment A 1412 that compared to the staffing required to ensure smooth crowd control and properly functioning equipment at the single Coliseum station, the 3 project serving stations would require more staffing and bear higher costs to manage the new ridership. Of course, BART's going to say that. I need you to scratch my back a little bit harder so I can scratch yours. Continue scratching yours. That seems a little bit opportunistic right there by BART. Not surprised. I guess that's business. I guess I understand it. I don't know. Will they get that more staffing and bear higher costs? I don't know. It's the same reason I look at the bridge toll on the Bay Bridge. It's going up to $7 now starting January 1st. Like, some of these things naturally take care of themselves. Why does it happen? I don't even have a say in it. As noted in the various analyses presented in the consolidated response, there may be some areas that require additional personnel to manage crowds in some, but not all 3 stations. The results of the capacity analyses described show that there is sufficient platform area to handle the passenger loads. Consideration should be given for personnel to manage the potential for passenger bunching around escalators and other obstacles as passengers arrive on the platform after one or more of the 14 daytime ballpark events at the Lake Merritt and 12th Street BART stations, as well as after one or more of the 50 weekday evening ballpark events. The mezzanine of the Lake Merritt BART station may realize some passenger bunching, but that may require operational strategies. There is sufficient fare gate capacity to handle the passenger loads at all stations with a ballpark event. There is sufficient fare gate capacity to handle the passenger loads at all stations with a ballpark event. Although some lines may operate over 100% capacity on game days with the project, riders are generally more dispersed between lines compared to game days at the Coliseum, especially for Trans-Bay trips. Are you telling me right there? Are you telling me right there that the system is more efficient with people using 3 stations versus 1 on more lines? I think you are. So, what do we learn? What do we take away from this? BART is better at Howard Terminal, according to this EIR. Okay. I don't know how many more I should dive into on this. I'm already past the hour mark. Guess I could look at some questions and comments in a second. I mean, there are important ones here. The Coliseum alternative, the proposed project with grade separation alternative, right? How to keep roads and trains and people, rail safety, grade crossing, and grade separation. Let's dive into that one. Holy smokes, look at all the comments addressed here. Many commenters expressed concerns about the adequacy of the proposed mitigation measures to address the effects of the adjacent at-grade rail lines on the additional demand for access to the site generated by the project. A few commenters underscore the increased collision risk for all road users along the at-grade crossings in the vicinity of the project. Of particular concern to many commenters is that the mitigation measures outlined in the mitigation measure do not extend to the railroad crossings along Embarcadero West on Franklin, Webster, and Oak Street. So they talked about that before, that was something that they were going to consider as just a wider base. And I was scanning through this the other day. One of the comments and criticisms is that, let me see here, that they think that, and there was even let me just search it here. Yeah, comparisons to Petco Park at grade rail crossing. So, commenters have said, well, we have an example of this in San Diego. Let me just read it here. Several comments expressed concern about the at-grade railroad crossing in the vicinity of Petco Park and its similarities with Howard Terminal's proposed ballpark. Petco Park is ballpark of the San Diego Padres and Bob Melvin and Ryan Christensen, and now apparently Matt Williams too. It's located in San Diego, California. Comments underscore how patrons of Petco Park engage in risky behavior to get across the at-grade rail crossing train tracks, including climbing over or going under stopped train cars that temporarily block pedestrian access and outrunning an approaching train to get across the crossing before the train blocks the intersection. Commenters have provided video evidence of pedestrians engaging in risky behavior, specifically along Fifth Avenue at Petco Park. One commenter offers that patrons of San Diego's Petco Park can regularly be seen climbing over and under parked train cars that temporarily block pedestrian crossings in the vicinity of the downtown stadium. So these are all the comments. Let me just see here. The railroad crossing in the vicinity of Petco Park is not comparable with the safety improvements outlined in the draft EIR mitigation measure. While Petco Park and the Howard Terminal project share some common characteristics, there are some fundamental difference in their design that set Howard Terminal apart, as summarized below. Petco's rail crossings do not currently have pedestrian gates that would prevent pedestrians from walking onto the tracks when a train is approaching. However, Howard Terminal's proposed railroad crossing would include pedestrian gates. See figure 4.6-1, image of typical pedestrian gate with fencing. Okay, let me find. Oh, there it is. That's probably it. Is that a big? Yeah, that's a bigger picture. Okay, so that's pretty simple to understand. Is that you're going to prevent people from sprinting across. I don't know if that's the height of it. You're saying that somebody wouldn't jump it. That is what they're saying is a difference maker right there. Petco Park's fencing along the tracks does not extend all the way up to vehicular gates. Therefore, when a train is approaching, there is an available gap between the fencing and the vehicular gates that allows pedestrians to cross the tracks. Howard Terminal's proposed railroad crossing would provide fencing that would extend to the pedestrian gates. It would not leave a barrier gap through which pedestrians could walk when a train is approaching the crossing. So, look, I get it. Like, I appreciate the concerns, and I love the response. They're saying, well, we get your concern. Here's why it's different, and we're going to take the extra steps to get this right. The draft TMP includes management strategies, including crowd control approaching the at-grade railroad crossings to ensure that adequate queue space would be available for pedestrians to wait during gate downtimes. Petco Park does not appear to have similar requirements based on the video submitted with the comment letters. And then it goes into a bunch of different ways here that, or ways that it's different, Howard Terminal and Petco Park. Third track activation. There's a lot on this. I mean, again, I know this is a deep dive, but if I cover every single, that's, I guess, the end of it. If I cover every single section in that level of detail, we'll never even get to the end of this. Effects on light glare and maritime operations and safety. A number of commenters and comments suggest that the draft EIR did not adequately analyze or characterize the project's potential effects on maritime operations and safety in the estuary, specifically in the Inner Harbor Turning Basin. Here's all the comments, some comments. Finally, some comments raise concerns regarding the safety impacts on maritime activity from pyrotechnic displays. It's always about the fireworks, isn't it? Bird collision mitigation measures. Let me see what else here. Use of threshold for nighttime glare that's based on a standard development for roadways. Let me see here. The lighting analysis is based substantially on a technical lighting study prepared by qualified lighting design professionals at Horton Lees Brogden. Okay, so they're saying that we consulted experts to figure this out. I've already heard the answers to this, but here it says, concerning the most common questions with respect to effects on vessel navigation, it must be first clarified that the draft EIR's analysis appropriately presents a conservative scenario. This is because the locations evaluated include 3 different elevations at a point approximately in the center of the turning basin. Okay, so they're saying, we're talking about something that we can only visualize and nothing more. Given the nature of sports lighting, which requires an intense focus on the playing field, the amount of light cast beyond the field of play is substantially less than that shining on the field. Obviously, it's focused lighting. For example, you're in the parking lot of the Coliseum. Are there bright lights in the distance? Yes, and those are old. I mean, those are towered lights. Those are banks of lights. This is new modern lighting where they put them in strings. They're more focused. I'm a production guy. I do know a little bit about lighting. Ta-da! Wait, I should have given you that. Ta-da! But the point here being is that the lighting system will be set up so that it's focused, it's harnessed, and it's not brighter than it needs to be, and it's not more leaky than it needs to be. I mean, even my lights here in the studio are very focused on certain spots so that you don't see shadows of other things. And that's what they're saying here. As explained, technical lighting study prepared for the project. The beam spread, that's the word I was looking for. The beam spread for sports lighting fixtures is very tight due to the long throw distances, right? You need the light to go 500 feet, so it can't be wide. It's got to be like a spotlight focus. Long throw distances and high brightness required on the field of play. As a point of view gets further from the center of the beam, the glare caused by the intensity of the light drops precipitously. Oh, I love the words in this EIR, by the way. I'm gonna write some of these down and use them on TV. Nonetheless, to further evaluate glare within the turning basin location closer to the shore, the project lighting consultant conducted a supplemental evaluation of glare in the turning basin. The supplemental glare memorandum explains, generally speaking, glare experience in the sports lighting fixtures is greatest when one is in line with the center beam of the fixture and rapidly falls off as one moves away from the center of the beam. Let me see here. Supplemental evaluation, two additional points. Line drawn through the estuary, these existing receptors and perpendicular. These northern seven would be looking differently towards the light, just an observer 3. Okay, so depending on where you're at, what lights are you going to see? And as soon as you move off axis, you're not going to see them. which also includes da-da-da-da-da. As shown in Table 4.18.1, the maximum brightness luminance, like how many lumens, of the sports lighting at locations in the turning basin nearest the water level would range from 4,054 candelas at the southwest receptor to 7,103 at the northeast. This is where it gets so technical. Oh, but here's the idea, right? If there is lighting from center field, and again, you don't want to throw too much. This is the same thing as you wouldn't put lights in a batter's eyes, right? You don't want to put it in the pilot of a ship's eyes or a vessel's eyes. So it kind of shows you here, where lights, like there's the beam of light right there, and here's the turning basin, which does already exist. And in fact, they might even make it wider. I mean, that's part of the comment. I guess they would use a little bit of this area right here if they wanted to make it wider. But it just goes to show you, how the lights, where are we coming from? Lights pointing here don't matter. Lights shooting this way don't matter. Lights shooting that way for this don't matter. It's these lights right here that they're primarily focused on, kind of in the left field area. I wish there were a conclusion at the end of this. There's the brightness. Do we get a conclusion? Oh, but man, look at this. Look at the level of detail here. There's a ship in the turning basin. There's an idea of the lights, and look at this. Lights are shining down on the field. Look at this angle. Look at this different angle they'd have to be focused to hit a ship out there. Now, it's not to say you couldn't see that light, this light here, but look at that angle versus that angle. Totally different. Lighting elsewhere in the estuary. Night lighting thresholds. Can I just get a conclusion? Daytime glare. That's also of consideration, right? If you have a lot of glass. Pyrotechnic displays. Maybe there's a comment period extension. Oh, but that's a totally separate chapter. So I don't really see a conclusion there other than to say this should not affect anybody as much of a concern. We're here on the fireworks displays, and I won't even go over that. That's a lesser common issue. Night lighting thresholds. I don't really see, where there is an ultimate, conclusion there other than lights are not focused at ships. They're focused on the field. All right. Is there one? Oh, I know the one we have to get to. And let me not skip over a lot of these things. Earlier in this live stream, I talked about affordable housing. There's a huge section here on gentrification and indirect housing displacement, environmental justice, urban decay, remediation plans, land use, human health, ecological risk assessment. Again, I'm calling this video deep dive, but there is even much deeper than the levels that I'm even at right here. Let me just take a quick peek at the live stream. Okay, we're up, we're running. We got people watching. That's a good thing. Sorry, sometimes, you didn't really need to see that. Sometimes I just got to make sure. Okay. Let me find one more here. Again, I wanted to highlight the other things that I think you should go through here, specifically in Chapter 4. This is the heavy one. The off-site Coliseum area alternative. Multiple comments addressed in the analysis of Alternative 2, the off-site Coliseum alternative, in Chapter 6 of the Draft EIR. Some of these comments pointed out the merits of the alternative and criticized the Draft EIR for insufficiently identifying the impacts of the proposed project at Howard Terminal that would be reduced or eliminated if the Oakland A's were to build their proposed project at the Coliseum site. Let me just go with my motto here at the beginning of this. The right thing to do and the easy thing to do are rarely the same thing. This is a once-in-a-generation project to get the Coliseum right. To get the ballpark right. See, it's just thinking about any stadium's called the Coliseum. To get this ballpark right. If you do it at the Coliseum site, and 10 years later, there's regret, there's remorse. Look at the Texas Rangers. Built a ballpark in, 93, 2, 3, 4? They're out of it by 2020. It lasted not even 30 years. Same thing with Atlanta. And that one was built for the Olympics, but it was partly built for the baseball team. They're in, they're out. They have a new ballpark already. It's more wasteful for the A's to build something at the Coliseum, completely regret it, and say, you know what, we should have done this at Howard Terminal to begin with. This is a mistake. So the right thing to do from a business standpoint, location is everything. For example, let's talk Giants for a second. And I know those of you who are watching this video and sticking around this long, you're interested in the A's in this ballpark. But Pac Bell Park, SBC Park, AT&T Park, Oracle Park, whatever you want to call it now, that location, in my opinion, will not change for the next 250 years at least, right? We're talking about your kids here. That location is so perfect for them. Now, there's also sea level rise, which, there's a big, huge chapter on this. If you missed the beginning of my video, I talked about that whole section. You should check that out. And that's a concern, that they think that the water level of the bay, and in this case, the estuary, could be several feet higher as time goes on. But that location, right? 3rd and King in San Francisco. Why would you ever want to change that? You're not going to get better. So you're going to keep improving that ballpark. You're going to make it better over time, and you're never going to really seek a new location. Same thing for the A's and Howard Terminal here. Once you build this, that's it. You're done ever looking for another site in Oakland or in the Bay Area. You won. You got the end game. If you do the Coliseum, to me, there is the potential for regret. It didn't work out. It didn't make things better. It didn't improve it. We swung and we missed. So that's my stance on it. Let me go back to this. Others question if the draft EIR's identification of the reduced development alternative is the sole environmentally superior alternative, arguing that the offsite alternative would be superior because it would avoid impacts at and near the Howard Terminal site. These other related comments are responded to in 5 subsections below, starting with the purpose and requirements for alternatives analysis pursuant to CEQA. So they're saying, well, why didn't we talk about alternatives? But let's just go through this again. This whole EIR that's 3,500 pages that I'm taking more than an hour to scratch the surface of with you. You realize this whole thing would have to be redone all over again for the Coliseum site, right? Like that's not, there's no plans for that. There's no, like, there may be some things that have already been in the works, but like, you got to start from scratch with that. And you would also run into other things at the Coliseum site. Mitigations. We talked about that before. Remedies. There's a lot of things over there that would also need attention and improvements. People think it's a slam dunk. They think it's easy to build on because the ground is flat. And that's probably true. And because there's a BART station there and there's a freeway exit. There are some, but again, are you telling me that the infrastructure around the Coliseum site doesn't also need improvement? If you're going to build something brand new? Because can you just build something, like if I wanted to tear down my house, could I tear down my house and build a new one? Or is there a lot of paperwork that needs to happen? And in this case, a house is way different than a ballpark. My point here is I call the Coliseum the easy thing to do. I don't even know if it's that easy. Easier, yes. Easy, no. Easy thing to do, right thing to do, rarely the same thing. Where are we here? Sorry, I'm ranting on that one. Alternatives, analysis, purpose, and requirements. Let me see here. It's noted, consolidated responses. Keeping with this requirement. Key question. Asks whether the alternative location would substantially lessen any of the significant effects of the project. As a result, the draft EIR includes Alternative 2, the off-site Coliseum alternative, which would avoid 9 significant and unavoidable impacts of the project, as noted before. Non-sequel light glare, wind hazards, crane removal. You don't have to remove a crane potentially if you're at the Coliseum. Did I miss a section on that? I could have sworn that there actually is a whole section on crane removal, like at Howard Terminal. If the crane they can't fit it in, or if it doesn't work, then they're going to remove one of them. Or I think actually all of them. I think it does say that. Don't quote me on that, but you could search it. But it talks about that. because of its location and based in part on findings. Alternative 2 would also avoid potential significant impacts of the project requiring mitigation and have no impact associated with the following. Okay, so they're basically saying here's how it differs and here's how it's similar if you did this process at the Coliseum. Definition of the Coliseum site alternative, impacts of the Coliseum alternative when compared to the proposed project. Many commenters assert Alternative 2 would avoid some or all of the significant environmental impacts. Let's see here. Okay. Comment O2992 suggests that the draft EIR fails to provide the analysis to support the claim that criteria pollutant emissions associated with Alternative 2 would be similar to those with the project, Howard Terminal. Criteria pollutants from construction are directly related to the amount of construction activities proposed in Alternative 2 and construct a similar mix of land uses as the proposed project. While there could be less grading associated with remediation at the Coliseum site than at Howard Terminal, remember what I just said? Flat land versus, by the water, by the estuary. There would also be more site preparation work related to demolition of the Coliseum site and landscaping/utilities across a 120-acre site, Coliseum, as opposed to 55 acres at Howard Terminal. These differences were assumed to net out, and construction emissions is characterized as similar to those of the project for these reasons. So what they're saying is, don't forget, part of building a new stadium at the Coliseum site would be demolishing the old Coliseum. 120 acres versus 55 also that need to be redone. So there you go. And again, that's one aspect of it. Here's cultural resources. Comments suggest that the proposed project would include demolition of the Coliseum, a historic resource. Oh, trust me, I love its history. I will cry when it's done. I really will. But it's been done for a while. I think we know that. Impact would therefore be the same. However, as explained, the project would not include any physical changes to the Coliseum site. The draft EIR only considers demolition of the Coliseum with the development as a separate cumulative project and a necessary component of Alternative 2. Energy, hazards and hazardous material, level of soil contamination exceeds contamination at Howard Terminal. The level of soil contamination at Howard Terminal exceeds the Coliseum site. The commenters claim the draft EIR provides a false equivalency, suggests that the sites are not equal or comparable if related impacts at both sites can be mitigated to a less than significant. They're saying, we don't know with these requirements in place. With these requirements in place, impacts related to hazards and hazardous materials under Alternative 2 would be less than significant. Thus, impact would be similar to the proposed project, also known as less than significant, with mitigation, although the amount of contamination at the Coliseum site is believed to be substantially less than that at Howard Terminal site, and therefore the extent of the environmental response needed to address the issue would be less than with the proposed project. Okay. What they're saying, I think I read that as clearly as you did. There are probably more things to take care of at Howard Terminal than there are at the Coliseum site. But it says right there with mitigation, like with remedy. The impact would be similar to the proposed project with mitigation, which is going to happen. Done. This goes on and on here. Noise and vibration, transportation and circulation, other impacts. Again, this whole environmentally superior alternative, I think that was pretty much laid out right there why it's not. Many commenters expressed support for the Coliseum site, noting its redevelopment has long been planned and suggesting that its redevelopment would revitalize this area of East Oakland. These comments talk about the Coliseum site as an obvious choice and a better fit, while mentioning the site's size, transit, and freeway accessibility, decades of public investment in infrastructure. Have you drove on 880? near the Coliseum lately? I guess in San Leandro, it's nicer and wider. It's got new lights and overpasses. That's true. But immediately next to the Coliseum, no, not really. I haven't noticed that. Decades of investment. And the other thing I want to point out here too is that redeveloping the Coliseum. If you're talking about redeveloping the actual structure right now, it's just not possible. It's concrete. It's sunk in the ground. It's a big circle. You're still paying for Mount Davis, by the way, for a couple more years. That's still being paid off. It's not feasible to, I know people have talked about, well, just fix up the Coliseum, knock down Mount Davis, make it like it used to be. That's still not going to address walls you can't move, a clubhouse that's only so big, a field that is actually, a field that is 28 feet, I think, or is it 20 feet below sea level? There's a lot of things that are not fixable with the Coliseum site. So, obvious choice for who? Better fit for who? But that's an opinion, and I do understand that. Instead of wrecking the port, now wait a second. Let me pull this up here for just 1 second. If I can search Port of Oakland map. Yeah, this is all that I really needed here. Can I get this big? If I could just get this. Yeah, that's going to do right there. That's going to do just fine. Okay, Port of Oakland map. This is the Port of Oakland. That's Howard Terminal. Howard Terminal's not over here. Howard Terminal's not over here. Howard Terminal's not over here. Howard Terminal's on the edge of the port. In fact, Howard Terminal is not even connected to the port. That's the property of Schnitzer Steel right there. In between the port, right, which is all this area, and it's now expanded to be this entire area, right by the bridge and the toll plaza. But that's Howard Terminal. It's a small fraction, and it's already a separated fraction of the Port of Oakland. I want that to be clear when, and again, I don't know how many of you have been there, have seen that map, have seen that breakdown, but that kind of needs to be known. Some also suggest that building at the Coliseum site would be faster and cheaper. Remember, the easy thing to do and the right thing to do, rarely the same thing to do, and would serve as an economic engine for the surrounding East Oakland neighborhoods, revitalizing this area of East Oakland, creating a new go-to neighborhood, lifting the fortunes of a great swath of East Oakland. One commenter states that our community has made sacrifices and investments over the years to create the infrastructure, including having our streets widened through eminent domain to provide better access, with the expectation of community and economic benefits for East Oakland. Another states that East Oakland residents have been good neighbors for the A's for decades. It's time for the A's to be good neighbors in return. Let me just say this. I don't think the plan, though, is to evacuate the Coliseum site and make it nothing. The plan, and I understand that comment right there. And first off, I don't live there. It's not my place to have an opinion on that, but I do understand it. But it's also my observation, right, that what would take place at the Coliseum would improve that site so that the neighborhood could use that site even more. A baseball team uses their stadium 81 times a year. What happened today? Today is December 18th. We're a week ahead of Christmas. What happened today at the Coliseum site? Nothing. What public good happened there? Nothing. What's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen next week? What's going to happen January or February? Now, I guess they'll have motocross there one night, and maybe there have been some events at the arena, but nothing is happening on a 24/7 basis right now at the Coliseum site. And so my point here is that when people say that a new stadium would revitalize this area of East Oakland, wouldn't a new community and a new area and resources, a grocery store, bank, campus for education, public parks, anything you want, and that can be planned, and I think that is in the planning. Wouldn't that be better for the neighborhood than A new baseball stadium? I think you create even more jobs with that than you would with a new baseball stadium, I think. There are a few dissenting comments suggesting that a new ballpark is not needed or that it would be a detriment to the Coliseum area. That existing ballpark never lifted up the neighborhood. There's no reason to believe starting from scratch with the new one in the same location would do so now. I think in here there was also a part here. Let me just see if I can find it here. I'm pretty sure there was a part that discussed, they thought that the A's would want to develop the Coliseum site to pay for Howard Terminal. They made it clear a couple months ago. In fact, on one of our shows, Dave Cavell talked about it specifically in June, saying that the two projects were not connected. In fact, they weren't even really moving ahead on anything at the Coliseum site. They were so laser focused on Howard Terminal. How could I search and find that? Oh, that's not it. That's not it. I'm searching for the wrong thing here. I was searching for the site. Let me see here. Let me scan through this one more time here. Boy, isn't this good TV or good YouTube? Is me searching for something here? Let me see here. Silence. After I've been talking for like an hour and a half straight, silence is nice. Where is it? Develop. I guess that's probably a pretty common word. It only appears 377 times. Oh man. Maybe if I search the word connected. No. Oh wait, I saw something about the pedestrian bridge. Let me go back to that. Presence of a BART station immediately east of the Coliseum and the connected pedestrian eliminates potential. Oh yeah, think about that. That's a great point. The presence of a BART station immediately east of the Coliseum and connected to the Coliseum via a separated pedestrian bridge, again, essentially eliminates the potential that event attendees taking transit to the event would patronize a nearby business. You know what I'm saying? That they would support a nearby business. There are a few fast food restaurants on Hagenberger Road near the south vehicular entry to the Coliseum via Coliseum Way. These restaurants were surveyed in the sample outreach. Interesting. Oh, wait a second. Businesses in the vicinity of the Coliseum are not highly connected with the use of the Coliseum. Man, we're not even close here on this this section. I know it's in here somewhere. I'm so sorry that I know. I'm closing out this video. I'm trying to finish strong here on it, but I just cannot. Data analysis. Definition of it. Man, I wish I had this right now. The comments suggest addresses. By the way, this is literally what I spent like an hour on this last night, just kind of going over this. Demolition, energy. Again, what I'm looking for here is the criticism that the A's would need the Coliseum site developed to pay for Howard Terminal. And they said that's not the case. So maybe I should just go on that. I should go on their word, but it's also in here in this document. Found it. Comments also refer to impacts of abandoning the resources put into the existing sports complex at the Coliseum. Some of these suggested impacts are ill-defined. Wait. Some of the impacts are economic basis for not. Oh, wait. No, that's not it. Yeah, that's not it. Regardless of the views expressed where the comments concern CEQA issues and provide specific comment on the draft EIR and its evaluation, these have been responded to in this consolidated response and other responses. See, for example, must make a finding that a specific economic, legal, social, technological, or other considerations make infeasible the project alternatives identified in the final EIR. They're just covering their butt here and saying that here's why it doesn't need to be addressed. Anyway, long story short, I feel like I really screwed up there. I wasted a lot of valuable time, a lot of you watching on me trying to find something, and I could not find it. So let me dive right into the comments here because I think I can get to that. David, Playboy, it's a dump. You're right, but I'm selfish. I know you're talking about the Coliseum there. I know some of these comments are from a long time ago, and I do appreciate people joining in here. Somebody said, "Oh, what a lights were." What is that? Oh, a lightings earlier. Yeah, when they talk about BART, that means exits. Okay. I wish that would have been more clear to me. And I do see a lot of comments here. It looks like a lot of people have been, this is great content, don't worry. David, I appreciate that. Looks like there was a lot of comments back and forth at each other. So maybe I should just leave those alone. Maybe I should end this video. I wanted to, do this deep dive. I really did, just to kind of give perspective on what this is all about, what this EIR says, the sections of it. I highly encourage that you read this for yourself. This is something that, it's so deep. It's honestly hard to grasp all this even at once. I mean, it's been out for 36 hours. I've spent already a couple hours on this, and I feel like I still can't find everything I'm looking for. And I'm looking for all the answers in it. But overall, generally, a huge positive, a huge step forward. You get this signed, sealed, and delivered in early 2022, and you're that much closer to putting shovels in the ground. Now, I know that's the true currency of A's fans. Are they building this thing yet or not? But this is kind of like getting the marriage license, right? You're not at the altar yet. It's not your wedding day yet, but you've signed the paperwork to get the marriage license. Have you been there before in life? I have. I feel like this is what it's like. I really do. So, I think I'm going to leave the video with that. I'm also going to do a quick check on time. Oh man, it's already past 11 o'clock. So I think that's going to be it. Want a little music to send us off? Thanks everybody for checking out this live stream. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, hope that was interesting. Good beat here for is this Saturday night? Yeah. Saturday night. All right. Thanks everybody. Hey, if this video helped you understand some things, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget that if you're here right now and you do not subscribe to the channel, now would be a great time to do that. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, yeah, I'm there, but YouTube is what I'm really trying to build and work on right now. So subscribe to the channel, like this video. It'll help recommend it to others and eventually find it. All right, that does it, everybody. Stay safe. I'll talk to you next time.